Other devices on choir. Okay, Arlene.
Thanks. Item 1, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations?
Okay, not seeing MD indicating.
Okay. Item 2, review of the service estate, condition and suitability. And this is for noting.
Okay. Okay, as we'll say, the report's in front of you. I'm just going to see if MD has any questions or any comments. Okay, Georgia, you want to come in? Sorry, Councillor Cruikshank.
Thanks very much, Convener. Yes, the report on review of services and condition and suitability. What guarantee is that the scheduled work would bring this back up to AB? How confident are you that it'll bring it back to AB? Thank you.
Okay, pass over to Mr. Fleming just to answer that.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you for the question, Councillor Cruikshank. We worked very closely with our colleagues in City Development with regards our service estate, and obviously the planned works are intended to bring our buildings up to an A or a B, but until those works are carried out, something can happen in between to another part of the building, then that would be scheduled in the plans. So we are not able to confirm that they would absolutely definitely go up to an A and B, but always confirm that that is our intention, work with State Development colleagues, and that would be the case if nothing else happens. It's really important to say that those schools that continue to be C are prioritised in terms of our planned improvement work. And also it's really important that sitting alongside that, of course, is the suitability, and we do everything we can to use any available space to make sure that we produce the best learning and teaching environment for our children and young people.
Also, I don't know whether Mr. Martin might be able to add anything to that from a site development point of view.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks for the question, Councillor Cruikshank. Yeah, as Paul Fleming's basically outlined, the works are planned to bring buildings into condition from a C to a B, but external factors could take place that other elements of the building may deteriorate slightly while the works are being programmed. And the other thing to be mindful of, as we're aware, things like rewiring and roofing sometimes take and need to be done in phases, so that could be over a longer period of time. But the intention is obviously to prioritise those works and have them complete in the state to A and B as efficiently as possible.
Okay, you happy with that, Councillor Cruikshank? Okay, so got a question from Councillor McHugh.
First of all, forgive me, I don't have a device. I'm waiting for IT to bring me a spare one. Can I ask my question anyway?
So if you're happy to answer, ask it, yeah.
Okay. Paragraphs 9.3 and 9.4 report reductions in consumption of 11% and 12% in emissions for 25-26. Each of these reductions are attributed in the main to the closure of Braveview Academy and Craigie High School. It would be useful to know the relative contributions to these reductions between what are one-off school closures and other ongoing measures. Are officers able to provide any further breakdown of these percentages so that elected members can better judge performance towards our targets?
Okay, I'll ask officers. I'm not sure whether that's a question for Mr. Martin again or for Mr. Fleming, but probably Mr. Martin.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks for the question, Councillor McHugh. I'm happy to go back to colleagues and have a look at that data. What I would say is that obviously it's relatively new that we've got the campus open, and in the first few months the data is obviously still being gathered, and it's once we get to 12 and 24 months and we've got a bit more accurate data, we'll be able to look at that. But I'll see what we're able to provide in terms of splitting any evidence between the new campus and the other facilities within the school state.
Okay, you happy with that, Councillor Keir? Okay. Councillor Crichton, I see that you've withdrawn your questions, so Bailey Keenan.
It's really just a better understanding of what the 12% reduction means in monetary terms. Obviously, hearing that comment from Mr. Martin would suggest that we're not actually sure whether we're using more electricity in the new building. But wondering if, you know, there's a substantial amount of money, is that staying within education or is it moving into revenue? And will it be reported then at the next revenue monitoring report?
Yeah, I'll maybe pass to Mr. Fleming. I think I know the answer, but let Mr. Fleming answer.
Thank you. In terms of the first part of your question, with our colleagues in corporate finance and other departments around the specifics in terms of the figures, I can confirm in relation to the second part of your question that no savings were taken per se from the service as a result of the opening of the new campus, and that revenue savings associated with the opening of the campus were against capital financial costs. But again, our colleagues in corporate finance could perhaps provide further detail if required.
You happy with that, Bailey Keenan, or would you rather have? Yeah, okay, thank you for that. Councillor Short.
Thank you, convener. It seems to be all about the energy tonight and not so much about the schools, because my question is about energy as well. With the change in climate that we have, obviously it's good to see that these emissions are going down in this consumption. But I was wondering perhaps, and it might be Mr. Martin that can sort of help with this. What would that equate to? And rather than looking at a graph, if you could convert it into something that would be meaningful for me as a lay person, please.
Okay, Mr. Martin.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks for the question, Councillor Sharp. Yeah, I'm happy to do so. I don't actually have the data in front of me, but we'll provide some context and give that as a briefing for members, as well as looking at the energy consumption across the state and come back with that.
Okay, not seeing anybody else want to come in, so can this report be agreed? Right, okay, Carolyn.
That takes us on to item 3, Children's Services Planning Partnership Plan 26 to 29. This is for approval.
Okay, so I see Councillor Coleman, you have a question, so I'll bring you in.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Convener. The report highlights Dundee schools overall of having an attendance improvement to 89.6% as a positive development, but from my reading of the papers, we do remain below the national average of 91%. Given that we're roughly about 1.5% behind the rest of Scotland, how confident are officers that current interventions are sufficient? And crucially, what specific evidence is available that our local strategies are actively closing the gap, rather than Dundee simply improving at the exact same rate as the rest of the country? Thank you.
Okay, may I pass off to Mr. Fleming?
Thank you, Convener. Thank you very much, Councillor, for the question. Every single nursery and primary, secondary and special school in our city is focused on improving the presence of our children and young people. In terms of presence, that means school attendance, but not just school attendance, the engagement in their learning, the connection with their children, their connection with the school. Unfortunately, school attendance across the country and indeed across the world is heavily linked to postcode and deprivation. Dundee has over 40% of our children and young people in our schools living in the most deprived parts of the city, compared to approximately 23% nationally. We are improving, and we have improved for the second year in a row, and not every local authority could say that. Overall, our primary school attendance rate has improved, stalled at the last term, and our secondary school rate has improved again. Every single school through every Dundee Learner Matters is focused on not providing simply the same strategy, yes, sharing learning where it works, but actually really working with their children, their young people and their families to see in that context what will make a difference. For some, it's the curriculum. For some, it's the quality of the relationships. And for others, it's a housing or home situation, and we work very closely with our colleagues in other departments for that. As the plan highlights, it very much is not just an education issue, but it's a societal one, and we all have a part to play in that, including everyone here, because when our children and young people are in schools, they do very well. When they stay in school for 6 years, they do very well. So we have a number of strategies working. We have a lot of evidence. We collect and we use our data every fortnight, and we focus on this with our head teachers every time we meet, when we talk about making sure that every child, young person, knows that they're loved, loving and lovable. And so happy to provide any further detail, given it's such a priority for us in education.
Okay, you happy with that, Councillor Coleman?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, next question we've got is from Councillor McHugh.
Thank you. Page 31 of the plan, which is appendix to this report, includes an action on housing and homelessness needs being included in the child's plans and whole family support plans. The measure against this, however, deals only with homelessness presentations. Can officers confirm that housing needs as well as homelessness will be monitored to ensure we meet the stated commitment that families live in affordable, suitable and sustainable housing?
Okay, I don't know whether I'll pass to Mr Lloyd in the first instance and then maybe on to other officers as case may be.
Yeah, thank you, convener, and thank you for the question, Councillor McHugh. There is a lot of activity, council-wide activity going on in this space. And firstly, in relation to Children and Families Service, for instance, we've recently stipulated that no 16, 17-year-old should be referred to homeless accommodation, and that we've extended the range of supported accommodation available to them across the city. You'll know, for instance, from previous committee reports that we've done that with unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, and we continue to do that in relation to care experienced children and care leavers as well. Beyond that, we work very closely with neighbourhood services, and I'm sure that Louise, as Head of Housing, will be able to provide more detail in that regard.
Okay, and it's possible to Louise, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yes, so thank you for the question, Councillor McHugh. So it's clearly set out within the local housing strategy the supports that will be carried out, particularly in relation to Dundee City Council tenancies. And what that looks like is personal housing plans that are carried out that really look at a holistic supports needs assessment to then link in with other partners such as children and families, third sector and such like to make sure adequate support is in place.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor McHugh?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cruikshank.
Thank you, convener. My questions on the thematic priority 2, physical, mental and emotional health, in particular the children's healthy weight. I note from the report that there's been an increase of, to 27% from 25.5% increase in the healthy weight of young people. Can you tell us what you're doing to address this? And I'm aware that there's links to poverty and food affordability, and where it's going to be targeted. Thank you.
Thank you. Just see which was the best officer to reply. Paul, Mr Fleming.
Thank you very much, convener, and thank you, Councillor Cruikshank, for the question. Yes, child healthy weight remains a concern for us here in Dundee, as it does nationally. And the latest Public Health Scotland data shows that around 1 in 4 children in primary 1 at risk of overweight or obesity. And this has increased slightly over the last year. It does reflect a wider national trend with, as you referenced, persistent inequalities with a higher risk among children from deprived communities. And it's really important to say that this again is not an education challenge alone, but a societal one. We are working and we continue to work closely with, for example, NHS Taysides. We have a number of strategies. I'm happy to provide further detail, but building on the success of our healthy weight policy and approach in early years, we're now progressing this into primary school and beyond. It's also really important to say that the free school meal agenda links quite heavily to this, and it's pleasing to see that with 100% uptake in ELC, we're starting, or have done, sorry, for 2 years, and also seen that really increase across primary in particular, which obviously helps with the financial crisis and agenda too. So we have a number of strategies, universal, but also some targeted. And of course, this will be built on now as well through the place-based whole family support. And we look forward to trialling other things, again, working very closely with our children and people and families to see what it is they feel would help them and to learn from that and continue to roll out with our partners across the city.
Okay, you happy with that response?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Don't see anybody else want to come in, so can this report be agreed? Okay. Okay.
Okay, so thanks, convener. External members of the committee will leave at this point. And then that'll take us on to item 4, carer strategy 26 to 32, and this is for approval.
Okay, thank you. So Billy McPherson, I see you have a question.
Thank you, Convener. It's about the challenging financial environment that we find ourselves in. And given the continuing financial pressures facing both the City Council and health and social care partnerships, can officers identify which actions within the carer strategy are dependent on new or additional funding? And what assessment has been made of the strategy's deliverability should future budgets be constrained? And I'm thinking in particular, what assurance... Sorry. I'm thinking in particular, what assurance can be provided that commitments set out in the strategy can be sustained through to 2032 within anticipated resource levels, given the challenging financial environment that we find ourselves in?
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm just going to look to see which is the best officer to reply. Is that Glyn or is that Alison?
Yeah, thank you, Convener. Thank you again, Bailey McPherson, for the question. The plan has been developed in the context of our belief that at the moment, at least, we can deliver on each of the priorities. But of course, should the financial situation change and the circumstances become more challenging, then we will keep the committee up to date, both in the budget setting process and via the annual reports, which are referred to as part of the plan or part of the report.
Okay. Are you happy with that response, Bill McPherson?
Yeah, can I just come back on that?
Of
I take your point. I take your point completely there, Glenn. I presume we will be updated. I'm just very conscious of the challenging, shall we say, financial settlement over the last couple of years, particularly health and social care. And I'm just really wondering if we can get some assurances that we will be kept updated should there be any need to amend the carer strategy in the light of a challenging financial environment next year or in a future year between now and 2032.
Sure, that would be acceptable. I'm just checking officers. Yeah, Mr. Lloyd's agreeing to that. So yes, that will happen.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Cruikshank.
Thank you, Convener. I very much would like to welcome this report, and it's good to see that all unpaid carers are heard, valued and understood and supported thus so that they have a healthy and have a life their own alongside their care responsibilities. The question that I want to ask is about the short breaks. How do we choose what young person needs the short breaks and how will it be funded? Thank you.
Okay, Alison, would you ask you to reply to that, please?
Thank you for the question. Yes, young carers would be assessed through our normal process of assessment, so through our GIRFEC practice model of assessment, through team around the child meetings, and if they have a higher level of need, through a social work assessment as well. If that was identified as a need, then those provisions would be put in place through a number of different sources, potentially through the Young Carer Centre, through our commission services, and if required, through our self-directed support, based on that individual need as it's assessed.
Okay, are you happy with that, Councillor Cruikshank?
The second part of the questions, how will it be funded? Thank you.
Yes, so that would be funded through, again, existing services that we have. So that could be through self-directed support if that's what's needed. It could be through the commission service that we already have through Carer Centre, or it could be commissioned through one of our other third sector provider commission services if that's what's needed.
Okay, you happy with that?
Thank you, yes.
Okay. Okay, don't see anybody else want to come in, so can this report be agreed? Okay, I think that's all for children and families.
Right. Good evening to Neighbourhood Housing and Communities. Arlene, if you could lead us off, please.
Thanks, convener. Item 1, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations?
I don't see any declarations, so if we can move on, please.
Item 2, fire and rescue performance report. You have this for noting.
Okay, everyone has sight of the report, so I will just open it up to questions for Scottish Fire and Rescue, and I see Councillor Duncan has a question.
Thanks very much, convener. Just to one for Mr. Todd. I think we spoke earlier today on the telephone concerning the future of Balmossy, and it's now public knowledge that the board has taken forward the proposal to, in my opinion, downgrade Balmossy to a retained status rather than full-time. They're going to take the full-time pump away to Kingsway East. I just wondered if Mr. Todd could expand at all upon that.
Okay, Mr. Todd?
Thanks, Councillor Duncan. I'm aware that the SDR board took, the SFRS board meeting took place today. I appreciate the meeting was live streamed so that the information contained within that is in the public domain. I believe that all recommendations have been taken forward by the board, which would result in the action that you highlighted. I don't have any official information on that as we speak, because it's hot off the press to speak. So my next steps will be to communicate with all staff and trade union members, and then let elected members know as soon as possible, so you're officially informed of the outcome as well. I appreciate that SDR is not on the agenda. We're here to present the scrutiny report, but also totally acknowledge the significance of the information that's been passed today. And I'm happy to take that off table and provide any further information as we move forward in the next few days.
Thanks very much indeed, Mr. Todd. I appreciate that, it's a bit lastminute.com for you to be able to expand further tonight. But given that it's now in the public domain and it's being reported in the media, it would be my intention to, after your report and questions, move a motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Scullin, please.
Thanks. I've just got a question on the accidental dwelling fires and the non-fire casualties. The numbers in Coldside are higher than any of the other wards, and I wondered if you would be able to tell me, or I don't know if you'll be able to tell me, if that's because of the multis at the bottom of the hill.
In terms of that, there's no specific detail in terms of that. It's that there is a risk there, but that's not what we're seeing through that. And I'll probably bring my colleague Alan Lowe, who's responsible for Blackness and Kingsway stations in, and probably give us a wee bit more detail around that.
Thank you. Can I just ask you to repeat the end of the question for me, please?
Yeah, I just wondered if the numbers in Coldside for the accidental dwelling fires and non-fire casualties were due to call-outs to the multis at the bottom of the hill.
Sorry, I didn't catch the very last part of that sentence. So the high-rise dwellings at the bottom. No, we have looked at the geographical spacing of the statistics there, but upon doing so, there was no correlation to the high-rise dwellings. They were spread without any pattern across the ward. That's the answer. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for that response. Councillor Coleman, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Convener. The report shows that deliberate fires remain heavily concentrated in Strathmartin and the North East wards, accounting for a significant proportion of all deliberate fire incidents during the reporting period. What assessment has the SFRS made of the principal causes of these incidents, including the extent to which they are associated with antisocial behaviour, youth fire setting, vacant or derelict properties, refuse fires or other environmental factors? And also, I could ask what targeted preventative enforcement activity has been undertaken by the fire service and partner agencies in these areas, and how effective do you think those preventative and enforcement activity measures are? Thank you.
Thanks very much for the question. Yeah, deliberate fires remain a key area of focus for us, with 207 incidents recorded over this reporting period, and the majority being secondary fires, such as refuse and grassland as well. It's important to note that this is actually the lowest Q3 and Q4 toll over the last 4 years, showing positive progress. It's been addressed through target intelligence-led programmes and partnership work, particularly focused on young people in hotspot areas, like you've mentioned. We play an active role within a much wider multi-agency response to antisocial behaviour, particularly with our colleagues in Police Scotland. In terms of how we're addressing that, we've got targeted youth engagement and school education programmes. We've got partnership work with Police Scotland and Dundee City Council. We've got specific interventions around derelict and vacant buildings, and I'll bring my colleague Alan in a minute, can give you a wee bit more detail on that. And campaigns such as bonfire safety, which contributed to a 52% reduction in secondary fires on bonfire night this year, which made a significant impact on that. But I'll maybe invite my colleague Alan in just to give you a wee bit more details around the specifics of those interventions.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have been delivering through our Dundee Community Action Team fire raising and antisocial behaviour initiatives, and targeting local schools and youths in the area. We continue to work with our council partners, community wardens and Police Scotland when we identify the areas of any kind of deliberate fire raising, and we will kind of continue to target, use that partnership approach to target future areas that we can identify. And again, I think as my colleague LSO Todd alluded to there, the statistics over the Q3 and Q4 seem to show that the partnership working has been effective in reducing the number of deliberate fires across areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very comprehensive response.
Thank you for the question there, Councillor Coleman. I see no further questions, and I see Councillor Duncan has intimated he has a motion. So has that been circulated, Councillor Duncan, to committee services?
It has been, or should be. Can I ask officers to circulate it now? Are officers able to circulate my motion? That's great, thanks. Okay, it's quite a wordy motion, so you'll be relieved to hear that I don't intend to go through it word by word, of course. And it's obviously a matter which we've discussed before and come to cross-party agreement upon. It's disappointing that despite the very vocal opposition of many people towards a downgrade, and certainly very much against the closure of Balmossy, the board has nevertheless gone ahead with what I think amounts to a downgrade. I don't know how you can put it any other way. They're going to take the full-time appliance away from Balmossy and put it to Kingsway East. That would leave Balmossy with a retained or part-time provision, which, although is better than nothing, is certainly a downgrade from what the position was. So I'm disappointed about that. We have to bear in mind that, it's not just Broughty Ferry at all we're talking about. If you go to Balmossy, if you go east from Balmossy, the next nearest fire station of any description is Carnoustie, and that's a part-time one. So in my view, that leaves an awful lot of area potentially at risk. Nobody wants to be a scaremonger, of course not. But, it's worth bearing in mind that the fire service does a lot more these days, and has done for a long time, than merely attend fires. They go to car accidents, they go to spillages of hazardous chemicals, they do home visits for safety. And that latter function is actually crucial in driving down house fires. So I think what I'd like the committee to consider is to reiterate really our disappointment that Balmossy has been in any way downgraded, and to really ask the Chief Executive to write to appropriate people like the Cabinet Secretary for Justice, the Chair of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Board, and the Chief Officer of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, and also to make aware, as I'm sure that they already are, our local parliamentarians for, indeed, Dundee's parliamentarians for both Westminster and Holyrood. Really, if we can't reverse this decision, and I'm still hopeful that, somehow we might prevail upon them to actually reconsider and take account of the great many objections that were put before them. But even if they won't consider, then it's certainly going forward. I'd like it to be closely monitored to see that there is no reduction in service levels of any kind. It's really critical. It's of vital importance to the public that we all of us, not just politicians, but residents, everybody needs to have confidence that they're in safe hands. We know that SFRS, where they exist in sufficient numbers, are safe, competent hands. But my concern is that, downgrading Balmossy does potentially expose quite a vast area to a lesser service. And so, although I have every confidence in individual firefighters, I think that, we owe it to ourselves in the community to keep this under, a quite eagle-eyed review. So on that basis, I'd hope that members might support me.
Thank you for that, Councillor Duncan. I certainly, in principle, have no issues with anything you've put down there or said. I just want to clarify with Mr. Many that it is competent to bring that motion to this paper, as obviously this paper deals with a previous period. And if I could just get Mr. Many's clarification on that.
Thank you, Convener. The final decision on all matters of relevancy rests with yourself.
In that case, then I have no issues, with that motion that you brought forward, Councillor Duncan. I see that Councillor Crichton wishes to second you. If he wishes to talk to that, I'll let him in and do so now.
Thank you, Convener. I won't take too much of people's time, as we have deliberately made this motion so it's cross-chamber. I think we've listened to residents, listened to our MSPs, and we just have grave concerns about this. And across the city, we just really need to keep up the pressure and keep up what we've been saying for months and months and months. So I think Councillor Duncan outlined it all, and I'll say appreciate your comments, Convener, and hope we can just move forward with this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crichton. I do not see anyone moving against it, so I think that will be agreed across chamber. And with that, then, that is the Scottish Fire and Rescue report. And I will take you back to Arlene, please.
Okay, thank you. That takes us on to item 3, Dundee Local Policing Area Quarterly Police Report. You have this for noting.
I will just open the floor to questions to Police Scotland. Councillor Crichton, is that a question from yourself?
Yes, I'm back in again.
Okay.
Thank you. So my question is, the report notes that domestic housebreaking increased to 72 incidents in Q3, Q4, compared with the corresponding period in the previous year, while detection rate remains around 19%. What assessment has Police Scotland made of the factors driving that increase? And are there particular communities, housing types, or victim profiles that are disproportionately affected by this? In addition, what targeted preventative and investigative measures are being deployed in response to this? And how will Police Scotland assess whether these actions are successful in reducing housebreaking and improving detection rates? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crichton. In particular, in relation to Q3, Q4 around acquisitive crime and housebreakings, a number of those crimes are attributed to a set amount of individuals. So that particularly, and it's been apparent in the press recently that a number of individuals across Dundee were involved in particular commercial housebreakings in Q3 and Q4, as well as domestic dwelling housebreakings. These individuals have since been arrested, put to the court, and have been remanded and are awaiting trial. So that's probably the first context. That there's a theme in there. There are, a number of people that are responsible for it, and we've acted on that and brought them to justice so far. However, what I would say is that, there has been a spike recently in Q3 and Q4 around domestic dwellings and commercial house break-ins. That is something we're acutely aware of. Our serious organised crime team are looking at that. They have oversight of all house breakings and review them on a daily basis. The new model, which we've introduced into Dundee around the Policing for Our Communities model, has introduced a community officers who are the problem solvers in each of the communities. Our response officers have dedicated patrol areas during late shift and night shift times when these crimes are more likely to occur. And we're working with businesses in those areas to improve safety around their business premises, security, and of course, where there's a dwelling house breaking, then we work with the victims to ensure that they have the best possible security. But yeah, to go back to the question, is there a number of individuals who were released from prison and have since returned to committing crime, and they were subsequently arrested by us.
Want back in, Councillor Crichton?
No, thank you, Convener. I think that's a comprehensive answer.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and as you say, that comprehensive reply. I see Councillor McHugh.
Thank you. Page 29 of this performance report details a 28% increase in the number of domestic abuse incidents recorded over the 5-year period. While it's reassuring to note that no increase has been recorded between last year and this, and detection rates have improved by 12% over the 5-year period, the long-term trend in recorded incidents is alarming. Dundee is the domestic abuse capital of Scotland. I note that a unit of the National Domestic Abuse Task Force is based in Forfar. Can officers comment on how the siting of this unit affects response times and delivery of services to Dundee victims?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, first and foremost, the trend of domestics being reported, that's the same right across Scotland, and there is an increase in that. That gives us some hope in that victims of domestic abuse, first and foremost, have confidence in the police, and they will report incidents to us and are not scared to report. And then that detection rate reflects the work we do with that. The Domestic Abuse Task Force is a national task force that progressed the worst case of domestic abuse, so your long-standing, historical and most serious versions of domestic abuse. They're actually now based in Dundee, so they were based up in Forfar, our old police station there, but they've now been brought into Dundee, and they're based within our divisional headquarters here in Bell Street. However, like every domestic, the first person that the victim will see as our response officers, who are all trained to the correct level. They all have experience around dealing with domestics, and of course they follow the Police Scotland guidelines and operating procedures. So they are the first people to see. However, when the domestic then progresses, it either remains with uniformed policing. We have a local domestic task force as well, domestic abuse investigation unit, are local to Tayside, and then you then have the overarching domestic abuse task force on top of that. So there are 3 layers of departments that take domestic seriously, and I think that the resource that we put to investigating domestics and bringing perpetrators to justice is evidenced by the resource that we put to it. The oversight and the governance we have around it is very, very stringent, and it is monitored daily, to the fact that every domestic crime is reviewed by myself daily, and then I have oversight of victims and perpetrators who are outstanding until they're brought to a position of arrest. But yeah, that increase is a national picture. It brings confidence that people can report it now, and we do see better reporting, and we also see reporting once they have that initial line into police. They sometimes report further crimes as well, and historical domestic abuse. So again, it's confidence in the police. But yeah, you have my assurance that all the resources are thrown at this, and that domestic abuse task force are now based in Dundee.
That's very helpful, thank you.
Thank you for that reply there, Police Scotland. Councillor Flynn has a comment, I see.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. It's early days with regards to the new community policing model, but I have to say, personally, I've seen good improvement, I have to say, with regards to contacting your officers and response from them, with regards to doing even speed checks in the local communities, addressing the issues in the local communities, working with stakeholders, including our own anti-social team. our SARC, etc., to ensure that we actually do some, for example, walkthroughs in the multis at the bottom of the hill towns has been touched upon. And I also say thanks for the contributions from your officers. I think that's actually a great step forward, and I'd hope to see a report coming in the future with regards to the progress and the success, and what or not, as the case may be. But I feel so far it's been quite successful.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, and we'll look forward to December's report, and hopefully it shows us positive.
Thank you for that. Bailey Scott, please.
Yeah, my comments similar to what Councillor Flynn has just said. I wanted to praise the changes that have been made as a result of the new community policing model. In my own area, Brodie Ferry, I see the police out and about far more than I have before. Attend community meetings, which was a rarity in the past. And the responses I get now from the police are instantaneous practically, whereas before sometimes it took a few reminders before I got information. So that's first class, the new processes that you now have in place. Chief Inspector himself attended the last meeting of Brodie Ferry Community Council, so he'll be aware of the issues that are there. But the one overriding concern is antisocial behaviour. And now we're in the summer months, and there's likely to be more movement of people likely to maybe think about antisocial behaviour. And I just wondered if you could share with committee what sort of response is there, what plans are in place, the headline of what are in place to deal with that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. And yeah, as you say, I was at the recent community meeting for Brodie Ferry. I mean, that's the same across. I want to be visible. I want to be involved. And that's certainly the theme that I'll deliver this leadership with. With regards to antisocial behaviour, yes, we are coming to school holiday time. There's no secret there that antisocial behaviour around youth disorder increases around this time. However, we're on a front foot this year, and the front foot is that, one, we'll have a model to deal with that. So we've got dedicated community inspectors, again, looking at the problems, looking at the trends, working with data analysts to see where our hotspots are. We can then on a weekly basis flex up dedicated community officers in areas such as Brodie Ferry, the Strathmartin ward, Turnberry Avenue, these areas, or in fact the city centre, which we see a peak over the weekends. The diversity work that we're doing with local authority and our partners will hopefully be a game changer. Last week we rolled out street soccer again, funded by McDonald's restaurant, and that's been great attendance. That's going to run for 18 weeks right up until winter time, so that gives you some diversity distractions on a Friday night. Hot Chocolate Trust at the City Churches have been given large funding for the next 3 years, and they're going to work with us, and in the future City Centre youth hub that we'll have in Crichton Street as well. So it's all about giving them an avenue, for distraction. Not all the youths are involved in disorder, but when they associate in large groups, yes, they stand out, and then they become involved in disorder, they become attracted or the wrong people. So we are seeing the trends, and at the moment the trends are City Centre and Brodie Ferry, but we'll respond to that, and we'll say with our youth diversity work with the dedicated community officers that will be out on foot and patrol on bikes, and then also the work that we're doing around e-scooters and off-road motorbikes in the north of Dundee, northeast of Dundee, into the ferry and city centre, and the seizures that we've had and the luck that we've had over the last couple of weeks around that, and particularly around Op Challenge and what we've done over the last week. So, and again, that will be rolled out through the summer. So lots of different things going on, but we're on the front foot, and hopefully it makes a difference this year.
Thank you very much for that response there. Councillor Lynn is next.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Just a couple of issues that I'd like to pick up on from the paper. Firstly, that of shoplifting, which is a particular issue in myself, Councillor Short and Councillor Cruikshank's ward. Maryfield, I'm pleased to see that the number of apprehensions has increased, because at first sight you would think, my goodness, there's been a terrible increase, because it's significantly higher than the 5-year average and much higher than last year too. But that's because of the extra work that you've been doing, which I'm sure is welcomed by retailers. And I note that you're also, I think, pressing for more stringent bail conditions, etc. I'm just wondering how confident you are that the current activity to apprehend shoplifters will lead to a long-term reduction in shoplifting. And I have another question, I'll just carry on. Yeah, also on page 37, I noticed that City Centre Community Policing Team have encountered issues at local parking establishments, including rough sleeping, substance abuse and antisocial behaviour. I'm wondering, in terms of rough sleeping, if we're talking about significant numbers of people sleeping rough, because I think our most recent indications were that rough sleeping was at very low levels, and certainly not like the levels we would have seen, 20, 30 years ago. Just, is it a small number? Or?
Well, I'll take the shoplifting question first. Sure. So yeah, shoplifting, 3 reasons there for the increase. One, a national trend. We're not an outlier from the rest of the country, but Dundee has had a 66% rise in shoplifting. Number 2 is we now have the Retail Crime Task Force with funding from Scottish Government in Dundee, between us and Glasgow, with only cities to have that task force. So officers out in plain clothes working with businesses around the reporting and the detection of theft, shoplifting, and then they're also coming across things in the street and whilst they're patrolling the city centre. And number 3, there's now an online retail crime reporting platform. It's with our bigger retailers at the moment, but it will be rolled out amongst all our retailers and businesses. So where you had possibly shops before who there would be small value shopliftings committed and they wouldn't bother to report it, there's now an easier process. A crime's a crime, no matter what the value of that crime is. A shoplifting is a shoplifting, and the person responsible should be held accountable, no matter what that value. So before, they were avoiding it because it would mean police time, it would mean retailer time, court, etc. Now they have an easy platform. It can be done online. All the CCTV can be uploaded electronically. So it's encouraging that reporting of shoplifting. So that's given us the huge spike. But the work the Retail Crime Task Force are doing in the city centre is not groundbreaking, it's exceptional. I mean, yesterday they arrested 4 people within a week for a number of shopliftings, and it's not just the city centre, it's up in the northeast in places like Sainsbury's or Milton Retail Park or Tesco, who are being victims. I mean, they are victims whether no matter what their margins are. Thousands of pounds worth of alcohol stolen, repeat offenders. And again, going back to the bail conditions, we will always ask for bail conditions. We can also look at antisocial behaviour orders with the City Council, and there is one person at the moment on an ASBO in relation not being in the city centre or the Hilltown area. But ultimately, what we're seeing is they're repeat offenders. So when they're released from prison, and unfortunately they're returning to the same crime and they're continuing shoplifting. But it makes it a bit easier for us because we know them, they're in the system, they're easily identifiable. And then on top of that, the new city centre policing model with a large community team dedicated to community issues in the city centre, and that is shoplifting. They're working away with that. So in the next 6 months, by the December, hopefully, it might be that because our crime goes up because we're finding more and but the detection rate should go up, and we should have more successes. And then onto your second question, rough sleeping. Yes, our city centre team are seeing a spike in rough sleeping in Dundee city centre. So your car parks such as Geltley Street is an issue, but at the moment we have about 10 private properties within the city centre of Dundee. They're flat blocks and commercial premises in Whitehall Street, Reform Street, these areas that we're having evidence that multiple people rough sleeping in the closes. Not necessarily all of them are homeless. Some do have tenancy in Dundee, and we've traced a number of individuals, asked them why, because a number of businesses have made the complaints because it's damaged the doors, they then damage the common close door, and then they sleep at the top of the common close. There are homeless individuals in that, and a lot of it is choice. There are individuals who have been offered property in places in Dundee, and again they've turned it down rather than sleep, and they would rather sleep in a common close in the city centre. So there's lots of social issues in there, but yet there is a spike in rough sleeping, and we're getting the complaints from local businesses.
Yeah, that's something I'll take up with our own housing department. I'm glad you included it in the report, though, so that I'm aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lynn. Councillor Scullin is next, please.
Thanks. I've got 2 questions, but they are linked. So the first one is about knife crime. I noticed that 4 out of the, I think it was 6 attempted murders involved knives, and that they've been doing work within Greenfield Academy. And I wondered if that had now been rolled out into other schools. And the other question is, I see that they've been working with girls groups on how to keep safe. And will there be any work with boys groups, sort of anti-violence against women and girls? Because obviously we're getting a lot of rise in online hate and things at the moment towards young girls.
So in relation to the first question, the No Life's Better Life programme, which was run in Greenfield, Grover next. And then the plan is, yes, to roll it across the schools in Dundee. And we've been speaking to the head teachers in education about that. It's a really important part of work because it drives down violence and highlights the use of knives, in particular involving crime. We've got the dedicated community officers now, so we can do that. And then on top of that, probably coming into your next question, the National Violence Reduction Unit, which sit nationally in Scotland, are now funding a post in Dundee, and we've just seconded one officer from our Downfield community team to work permanently with the National Violence Reduction Unit, and she individually, with that funding, will work on projects to reduce violence in Dundee, in particular around young people, and then violence against young girls in Dundee. There's funding for that, and that project will roll out. So we'll probably have more communication in our next report to do with that. But yeah, lots of positive things going on in Dundee with the new model, and then extra funding coming in for these posts. But yeah, Catherine Sanderson's been moved into that post. Some of you will know her from the Downfield community team, excellent community officer, and then she'll be doing a lot of the work.
Thank you, Police Scotland, for that positive reply. Bailey Keenan is next, and then Bailey Dawson will be the last question, I think. So, Bailey Keenan.
Thanks, Convener. I was heartened to hear from colleagues and yourself, of course, around the sort of community policing model and how that will improve matters over the future months to come. You know, it really sounds very innovative, some of the work that you're doing to combat crime in the city. Motor vehicle crime, because I represent obviously the Strathmartin area, and motor vehicle crime is an issue in relation to people having their cars tried outside their house. They're picking it up on Ring doorbells and firing that into people. And it's excellent, and hopefully that's all getting reported directly to you and not just put on the sort of local social media platform. But whilst it goes up on that platform and people don't have an answer for the police, then it just makes them worry a bit more about, is it my house next? You know, is it the garden shed? Is it whatever, you know? So hopefully, you maybe give me some level of answer tonight or reassurance, but how do we intend giving the people of Craighill that level of reassurance that the Ring doorbells are picked up? We're certainly looking into everybody that's identifiable on some of these video clips that are there, and if we've had some success in and pulling them into line.
Yeah, so firstly, thanks, Councillor. And answer that question, there have been a number of individuals responsible for those particular crimes in that area and are currently serving a remand in prison for vehicle thefts. We're also the victims of a number of organised groups from Edinburgh who have been responsible for a number of crimes in Dundee probably over the last 2 to 3 years, but we're seeing a downtrend of that at the moment, and hasn't been any recently. And secondly, the new model assists that. There's 3 strands to the uniform policing model now, and you're either you're a response officer, a dedicated community officer, or you work within our community investigation hub, and a large team of officers based in Dundee are responsible for investigating crimes. So, you know, member of the public reports, you know, an attempt break into their car, it's noted, then that officer, that victim receives a reply from the community investigation hub within 24 hours, and we're seeing, you know, an increase in our first contact time with victims of crime. They then take that crime on, they're dedicated to it, they're not answering calls or not doing any other police work other than investigating crime, which gives a better service to our victims. It keeps them updated, and then our response officers are then left, because they're not investigating the crime, they are then left to do the high visibility patrols that I would expect in the late shift and night shift times in the Craigowell area and the wider Dundee, and out there doing that high visibility prevention piece. But yet the model helps these investigations, and it means we get outcomes far quicker than before, and our victims of crime are kept constantly updated by police. But again, we'll see what that looks like at our next report, but already there are positives around that as well.
Are you happy with that reply, Bailey Keenan?
Yes.
Thank you. Bailey Dawson then, please.
Many thanks, convener. I was pleased to see page 44, 45 of our report 2021 of your numbering in relation to roads policing, that there has been increase in detection of speeding offences. This is something that folk will know I've moaned about before, especially in my East End ward. So I kind of wondered a couple of things. With the speed cameras now being installed on the Kingsway at Tesco, so replacing a site for the safety camera partnership, I'm just wondering if that opens up any opportunities for the vehicle to be used within the city. Specifically, I'm thinking more the 20-mile-an-hour zones, which are the misuse it's flagrant misuse by drivers day in, day out. And I wondered if officers could comment on that to see if there's any possibility of working with city development and actually maybe identifying areas where that could be used. Or I'm imagining you've already got a place for the vehicle to go already, so my request is probably already null and void. But I certainly think that it would be beneficial, especially in areas like my ward, Ballooney Drive, Ballooney Avenue in particular, where there are instances of vehicles absolutely redlining at first, second and third gear on a nightly basis, and just wondered if there's something that could be thought about with regards to that vehicle in particular.
Yeah, so the safety camera partnership, which is a national unit and partly funded by Scottish Government, is responsible for those vans, and it's not under direct control of divisions or particularly LPA. There's set guidance as to where that van can be placed, and it's all around hotspot and accident areas. So I don't know the exact answer if where it will be moved next in Dundee or how it will be utilised. The spike in speeding detections is down to our roads policing officers in Dundee. They've been a lot more proactive recently. They've had the resources to particularly the A90 at Palmmuir Field, or they were out in Broughty Ferry, as well as our community teams have been out recently, and they were out in the Hilltown area as well. So a lot of those detections that to do with the hard work of our officers being out there promoting it. As for the 20-mile-per-hour zones, at this time we will not enforce the 20-mile-per-hour limit zones, and there's been previous communication put out about that, and I can do that again, but we will still not enforce 20-mile-per-hour areas.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I understand that obviously resourcing is an issue, but when you're having vehicles, as I say, redlining it for second, third gear in a very heavily residential area, it's to be fair, and I really appreciate the increases that I see in the report, but residents don't see it. And as Bailey Keenan said earlier on, they're the first ones to come to Facebook to say there's never a cop about, or there's never a traffic car about when you need one, when this is all happening. And it's something that I've complained about for years, to be honest. But no, I'm glad to see there is more happening within local communities. That's something I was asked when this committee previously met in this forum with the whole council present. It was something that I was asking for more of. And I think, you know, it's kind of obvious to me when you see that the officers are out, it's always pictures of officers on Angus who have got the speed gun standing with residents taking, they're taking the pictures of the vehicle speeding. It never seems to be Dundee. And I think maybe having that bit more proactive online approach, showing officers actually doing that in Dundee, might be helpful for folk to actually realise it's getting done.
Yeah, we actually did it with Councillor Flynn 2 weeks ago. And
I missed that one.
It was on Facebook, but it's okay. There wasn't a lot of engagement to that post. And to give you an example, when we put something on about e-scooters and put a concentration op challenge, we get massive engagement and lots of comments. When we do it for speeding, and not saying it's right or wrong, we don't get a lot of engagement from the public. But that's not to say they're not concerned about it. But your comment about Douglas, so that I'll feed it to Roads Policing. They're obviously based in Douglas, and I'd like to see them, doing some work on their doorstep and not further out. So I'll pass that on, and all those comments are taken on board.
Yeah, especially when they're starting to speed up going past your garage on the way out towards Sainsbury's. It's a bit embarrassing.
Okay, thank you, Bailey Dawson. And I see no further questions, so that's the end of Police Scotland's presentation. And just before they go, I want to thank them and Scottish Fire and Rescue for coming along tonight and their thorough and helpful answers to councillors' questions. So thank you very much for your attendance. And I'll move back to Arlene, please.
Thank you. That takes us on to item 4. Procurement sourcing strategy approval for survey and treatment for timber preservation framework, and you have this for approval.
And I will just open that up to questions, of which there are none. So is that report approved? Thank you. And that is the business.
Good evening and welcome to City Governance Committee. Willie, please.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, are there any declarations of interest?
Don't see any, so we'll just take that as read. Thank you. Next, please.
Okay, thank you. There have been no declarations. Takes you on to item 2, the Council Plan Progress Report. You're asked to give the recommendations.
The report represents the 4th annual progress report on the council plan achieved in 25-26 across the plan's main themes, priorities and actions, and committee is asked to approve. Billy McPherson, please.
Thank you. The town vacancy rate has been highlighted as an area for improvement in successful council plan reports. Is there evidence that the measures currently being implemented, including the City Centre Strategic Investment Plan, are having a measurable impact on reducing vacancy levels and attracting new occupiers? And if the vacancy rate does not show improvement by the next reporting period, which I understand is this September, are there any additional interventions that can be considered? And what level of improvement would officers regard as evidence that the current approach is succeeding? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I'll ask Mr. Presswood to come back.
Chair, many thanks for the question, Bailey McPherson. Yes, we do believe there is some sign of progress, but it's not necessarily to do with direct interventions that we have had. There is evidence that if you look at Overgate, there's been a fairly significant reduction in vacancy rates there, and that's having an impact, we believe, in the next set of vacancy rates. Now, the type of activity that we are having is obviously the business improvement district, which we think will have a very significant impact on that. We're also looking at further environmental improvements in the Murrogate, I think, as members are aware, which again we hope will start addressing that. In the longer term, strategic development opportunities such as the Wellgate could have an impact, because I believe that the most significant vacancy rates in the city are, of course, the Wellgate and the Murrogate. So if we can do something in conjunction with the owners of the Wellgate, I think that would probably have the biggest potential opportunity for us to continue the downward trend.
Thanks for that. Does that answer your question, Bill McPherson?
It does. That's helpful from Mr. Presswood. I do understand that he's not master of all his surveys in this respect. There are external factors, shall we say, that are out with the council's control. But I don't doubt that officers are doing everything that they can. And I'm very grateful to Mr. Presswood for his response.
Thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. There's a number of factors totally out with our control, and we're worth fighting hard to try and make sure we can actually turn the city centre around as best we can locally. Councillor McHugh, I see you have a question.
Thank you. The update on reduced child poverty and inequalities records a reduction of 30 points over the previous year in the average total tariff for school leavers from our most challenged communities. The report emphasises that senior face attainment remains a key area for improvement, and that is just as it should be. The target for Year 5, 26-27, is 805. Current performance would suggest this is highly unlikely to be achieved. Measures to increase attainment are key to improving the life chances of young people in our deprived areas. What plans are in place to tackle these worsening performance scores in the short and the longer term?
Thanks for the question. I'll ask Mr. Fleming to come back, please.
Thank you, convener. Thank you very much for the question, Councillor McHugh. Indeed, I agree absolutely with the importance of the education for our children, particularly the most deprived areas. It's really important not to look at just one or indeed two measures alone, but to look at the totality of all. And indeed, we'll have another report coming to committees in the Children and Families Committee, should I say, before the end of the academic session to update. Because actually, when we look at more recently the attendance rate, for example, when children have to be in school to learn and to do well, when we look at the attendance rate for children in our most deprived communities in primary and secondary, we've seen an improvement. Again, this year it is higher than our family median. When we look at the 5 at 5, as these point to in terms of for children and young people in the most deprived areas, we are now doing significantly better than we were pre-COVID. I think the challenge has been the different assessment models since then. And when we look at 5 at 6, so 5 awards at higher level, we have now 2 years of improvement leading to the highest ever level. We will have detailed plans in terms of our annual education plan, and we look forward to updating you and indeed committee around the specific actions we're taking to improve the overall attainment for our children in our most deprived communities. I hope that helps for now, though.
Thanks for the detailed response, Paul. Does that answer your question? Okay, thanks very much for that, Dorothy. I see no further questions or comments. I'll take this report as agreed. Thank you. Next one, please, Willie.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 then is the Fairness and Local Child Poverty Action Plan Annual Report. This is submitted for approval. Annual report presents the Combined Fairness and Local Child Poverty Action Plan reports on progress during 25-26 and actions to be taken in 26-27 to reduce poverty and mitigate the impacts of inequalities experienced by families, children, individuals and communities. I see Billy McPherson. You have a question and a comment, please.
Yeah, the comment basically is that I think the report highlights a number of, frankly, significant achievements, particularly success around securing additional income for families, the strength of partnership working across agencies, and the excellent progress. And I think anybody who attended the recent Whole Family Support Conference, I'm sure would agree, around the whole area of whole family support. I think I was very impressed by the commitment, innovation and collaboration that exists across services, partner organisations. I don't think anybody could fail to be impressed by the immense contribution made by the community volunteers who were present at the conference. However, the report notes that 43% of Dundee's children continue to live in the 20% most deprived areas in Scotland, underlining the scale of the challenge that remains. I'm just wondering if officers can give us an assurance that they're confident that current interventions are delivering measurable reductions in child poverty, and are there specific improvements in outcomes that they would see as key to ensuring that we have measurable improvements over the next 3 years?
Thanks for the question. I'll bring in Mr. Lloyd, maybe be answered.
Thank you, convener. Thank you for the question, Billy McPherson. What I would say is that the corollary of that, as you've heard today from other reports, is that school attendance is improving, that literacy and numeracy is improving, that complementary tariff scores are improving, as we saw in the report submitted to this committee last month. So there are a range of indicators that we know we're getting better at as a result of council support, partnership support. As you say, Bailey McPherson, we want to try and build on that through the place-based whole family support, and that will include a particular focus on those families that are more at risk of poverty, as outlined in the national and local child poverty action plan. So we can't say that we're 100% confident that that will improve at the rate that we would hope they will improve, but we can say that there's concerted action. We're absolutely prioritising this going forward.
Thanks for that, Glenn. Does that answer your question, Bill McPherson?
It does. I'm grateful to Glenn for his reply.
Thanks for that. And I'll also take on your comments with regards to the whole family support and the mini conference, if you want to call it that, we had a number of weeks ago at the Apex. I think it was really a positive story to be told there and a lot of work to be done. And I think there's a good plan ahead with regards to working with partners to ensure we actually see this work in the North East and East End wards going forward. And I said on the day, you're absolutely right, it was very emotional, and actually it touched a lot of nerves of a number of people with regards to the stories that were told. So it's absolutely welcome, and I think we're looking forward to seeing the work and the achievements that could be done within these areas as well. Billy Keenan, please, I see you have an amendment.
Yeah, I've got an amendment, happy for that to be circulated.
Right. Can that be out to everyone, please?
Really, what I'm looking for, I think hopefully that's self-explanatory. It's really just to look towards council, asking the Chief Exec to write to the Scottish Government and Westminster Government for ministers responsible for the economy and trade. Really just looking to see what they can do to help lever jobs in. Whilst I realise there's a lot of work goes on at council level to try to obviously increase people's benefits and the benefits that they're entitled to and make sure that they get the finance that they need. Also, I hear on a regular when I put the news on that there is likely coming a potential reduction in benefits to people because, you know, as when parties tend to get their foot in the door, I'm sure something like that will happen. So it's really about looking at what we need to do in the city to make a real difference. And when I look at pages like 103, where 13% of young people below 18 aren't paid the living wage, it's no for the one to try to get businesses to engage in Dundee. And 29% of the population between 16 and 64 are actually economically inactive. So I really think that we need to do something that tries to attract jobs to the city, and it's a sort of wider appeal to ministers to try to do that. Obviously, the page 104 makes reference to 1,200 households that are workless households. That's almost the equivalent of a 4-member ward in Dundee. An area the size of Strathmartin where nobody works. You know, we really need to try and lever in jobs to the city, especially when we're going through such a traumatic thing with the university and the number of jobs that they're offloading. So I'm hoping that you see fit and others see fit to support the motion and the call for that wider engagement with Westminster and the Scottish Government try to lever jobs.
No, thanks very much for that, and I don't disagree with anything you said. And we're actually working continuously to try and do that, working with the Scottish Government especially to try and see what can be brought to the city to make sure our employment levels increase. We did that with the SSSA, if you recall, when we went to Agnes Husband House, and that was successful. We're continually trying to make sure we can actually get a fair share of jobs into the city and continue to bring employers in the city. And we do work very hard with the Living Wage Coalition to make sure we can actually get as many businesses signed up for that, and that will continue as well. So happy to agree to the amendment, happy to see that put in if the seconder's okay with that as well. Okay, thanks very much. I don't see any further questions or comments on the report, and with the amendment added, we'll take that as a read. Okay, thank you. Next one, please, Willie.
Thank you. That takes you on to item 4, local government benchmarking framework performance indicators, your ASCII recommendations. Report details the performance of Dundee City Council for the financial year 24-25 based on the performance indicators compiled by the Improvement Service for the Local Government Benchmark Framework, LGBF, and the committee is asked to approve. Councillor Coleman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Convener. The report shows that Dundee is performing at or above the family group average in only 17 of the 14 benchmarking indicators. Which indicators does the council leadership team regard as presenting the greatest concern in terms of outcomes for citizens, and what specific improvement actions, targets and timescales have been established for those areas? In particular, the report indicates that none of the indicators within the Build Resilient and Empower Communities priority are currently performing at or above the family group average. What factors are contributing to this underperformance? What corrective action is being taken, and what measurable improvements should members expect to see before the next annual benchmarking report? Thank you.
So in relation to each of the areas, there's, I suppose what we've done is we've picked the 5 areas that we think are furthest away, and they're the areas that we would be focusing on. So they are sitting at paragraph 6.1. What we should see in the report is what people think that we need to do in each of those areas to improve, and that will be monitored over the next period. In relation to could you repeat the question in relation to the Building Stronger Communities one?
Yes, no problem. So none of the indicators in the Build Resilient and Empower Communities priority are currently performing above, at or above the family group average. What do we think is contributing towards that underperformance?
So in relation to those ones, we've already discussed the town vacancy rate. So that one is obviously behind, and we've got to focus on that. There is the other ones are related to our housing, and one is the cleanliness score. So I would maybe bring Catherine Conroy in for the cleanliness score, and the housing one for Louise maybe to come in.
Thanks for that. I'll pass over to Catherine and Louise on that.
Thanks, Convener, and thank you, Councillor Coleman, for the question. So in relation to Dundee's cleanliness score, I can confirm that it has increased by 3%, which is really promising. So the environment team continue to improve work throughout 24-25, and this was supported by £300,000 of additional street cleaning funding. So activity included recruiting additional seasonal staff, continuing community cleanups, and prioritising litter management through the Take Pride in your city action plan. Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of average time taken to complete non-emergency repairs, so we are seeing an improvement with that indicator, and at the end of this reporting year for our return to the regulator was sought reduced to 10.57 days. And what continues with that is the significant investment which has been shared with members in and around our digital transformation in terms of how we deliver a repair service, which should have a positive impact. In and around the Scottish Housing Quality Standards, again, we're seeing improvement, so that's increased to 84.77%, and the 100% building condition survey is out to tender at the moment, which will be brought back to committee once concluded, and which will further support investment and direction of that in our stock.
Thanks very much. Just recognising what the work has been done by both teams across the council. Does that answer your question, Daniel?
Yes, thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you for that. I see Councillor McHugh's secretary has said there's a question.
Thank you. I have a comment, not a question this time. When reading through these performance reports, my eye is always drawn to red circles. And I feel this is where elected members' energies should be focused on those areas where we could be doing better. It appears to me that this update includes more red circles than previously. Reducing child poverty and inequalities has 7 out of 14 areas for improvement. Deliver inclusive economic growth has 4 out of 10. Tackle climate change and reach net zero by 2045 has 2 out of 3. Build resilient and empowered communities has 4 out of 4. And design a modern council has 6 out of 9. That gives us a total score of 23 areas for improvement out of 40 as we approach the final phase of the 22 to 27 council plan. And I note the warning contained in section 5.6 of the report about difficult choices around spending priorities. Difficult choices, of course, always affect our most vulnerable communities the most. And while it's important to acknowledge the great work going on in our communities across the city, detailed in some of the other reports before us tonight, this is not a good summary by any standard. The council leadership team and the transformation board will have their work cut out over the next couple of years. But at the end of the day, it is the role of elected members to lead this effort to improve the life chances of constituents by raising awareness and by lobbying wherever and whenever an opportunity becomes available. I hope and I know that members in chamber and online will commit to continue in this effort during the remainder of this council term and beyond.
Thanks for the comment, Dorothy, but I would say there's a lot of work to be done by elected members to monitor this and scrutinise the reports. You're absolutely right, but again, the officers are doing a fantastic job through difficult circumstances, as we all know. And I think that we've seen the target and working with the targets we've set before us. And again, we've got these key areas for improvement, the 5 there, and they'll be working on them along with the other ones you touched upon as well to make sure we can see progress. I can assure you of that. I see no further comments or questions, so we'll take that report as agreed. Thank you. Next one, Wally, please.
Okay, thank you. Takes on to item 5, non-domestic rates, discretionary and hardship relief policy. This is for noting.
Thank you. This report provides details of the Council's non-domestic rates, discretionary and hardship relief policy that offers discretionary relief to charities, organisations and other businesses in exceptional circumstances. And the committee is asked to agree with the recommendation. Councillor Duncan, please.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, just quite a brief question. Just given the severe economic headwinds facing our local high streets and third sector organisations, what active marketing and targeted outreach strategies are officers deploying to ensure vulnerable businesses are aware of the NDR hardship relief scheme? And then allied to that, although I don't expect officers to have an answer to this very night, I think it would be helpful for members of the committee to understand the local utilisation of this fund. So could a breakdown be provided detailing the exact number of hardship applications received, approved and refused by the council over, say, the last 3 years?
Thank you for information. There are currently 342 properties in Dundee in receipt of the discretionary relief for the financial year 26-27 at a total cost of approximately £390,000, just for information. But I'll go to Mr. Presswood just to give you some further details.
Thanks, Convener. We do work closely with colleagues in finance, but ultimately this is a nationally promoted scheme which is administered through colleagues in finance. We will work with them to identify key groups that we wish to identify, and obviously we'll promote it through relevant sector groups that we're also supporting.
Thanks for that. Hope I answer your question, Craig.
Mostly, but like I say, could we maybe have the details going back over the last 3 years? I think that would be handy. In due course.
Well, I think we'll also look into that, see if it's possible or not. Okay, thank you. I don't see any further questions or comments, so we'll just take that as agreed. Thank you. Willie, please.
It takes on to item 6, Health and Care Staffing Scotland Act, Statutory Annual Report. You're asked to give the recommendations.
Very important report. This report of Dundee City Council and Dundee Integration IJB Secondary Statutory Annual Report under the Health and Care Staffing, and it covers the period of 1st April 2025 to 31st of March 2026 and outlines how both bodies have complied with the Act's requirements regarding the planning and securing of care services, including adult and children's social care, early years and housing support services. The IJB is responsible for the strategic planning for the adult services, while Dundee City Council is responsible for the strategic planning for children's services in the early years. This joint report provides a coherent overview of the planning and procurement activities. I don't see any questions or comments, so I will take this report as agreed and the recommendations approved. Thank you. Next one, please, Willie.
It takes on to item 7, procurement sourcing strategy approval for digital to physical mail delivery service. You're asked to agree the proposals.
I think that's quite clear what the report is. Any questions or comments? Don't see any, so we'll take that as agreed. Thank you.
Item 8 then, before his HMRC increased the business mileage rate. You're asked to agree the terms of the note.
Again, the agenda notes on the reports. Any comments, questions? Don't see any, so we'll take that as agreed as well. Thank you.
Takes on to item 9, recess subcommittee establishment. You're asked to agree the terms of the note.
Yeah, in full agreement for the recess subcommittee, yes. Thank you. That's agreed. Thank you very much. Next one, please.
Thank you, convener. The remaining items are confidential and the committee moves to deal with these in the usual way.
Is everybody content? Don't see any objections, so we'll take that as agreed. Thank you very much. I think that's the business of this evening. Thanks all.